All right, hello managers and league mates, and welcome back to the weekly wrap-up. We're back live at MFFL Studios. I'm your commissioner, Michael, and I have with me an extra special guest to help co-host this week's show.
What's up, guys? It's Ian, former champion. You guys know who it is. Just happy to be here, Michael. Thank you for having me, and let's get into it.
Of course, that's right, Ian. The semifinals are here, and with that comes the tense do-or-die matchups all around. No more free buys out of this week. And if you win one more game, you're in the finals. Ain't that right, Ian?
Yeah, first round of postseason definitely had some close matchups. Some of them being decided less than fewer than 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, blowout against Darren for me, so not too tough there. Connor, great week for him. Dom, as usual, being himself. So definitely an interesting week. A lot to talk about for sure.
Definitely for sure. All right, let's go ahead and dive into a few of those matchup highlights here. First off, with the third-seeded Scoregasms versus the sixth-seeded Belichick yourselves. And boy, did this one get off to a fast start, didn't that, Ian? How surprised were you at the final outcome?
I wasn't entirely surprised, maybe a little bit. GM Brody, he definitely has been riding some lucky games this season. Definitely had some lucky matchups where he got some wins. Basically just breaking it down, the Belichicks ran away with it. Who saw Derrick Henry coming? 48 points. That's incredible for him. He did leave the window open, though, with some poor performances from his other positions, but it ultimately led to some poor decisions from Brody as far as who he started and who he left on his bench that really led to David's victory.
For sure, yeah. You had Hill and Kelsey leading the charge with only 14 points each, but exactly, they ultimately fell due to the shortcomings of the rest of the team. Like you mentioned, Ian, apart from Henry, Bellies didn't impress throughout any other outstanding measures, but Scoregasm's manager, you're feeling disappointed from the production from Diggs, Cohen, Coleman, and Woods, all who recorded single-digit games. All right, let's transition now to our next matchup, Ravioli
yes, sir.
versus the Viking Mites, the 4 versus 5 seeds. And, well, Ian, you were the manager of one of these teams,
yes,
the winning team.
Yes, I was.
To be
yes,
for
I was.
sure.
Yes, I was.
And a comfortable victory, it seemed. CMC and Zeke continued to dominate, 22 and 19 points each. Break down what you were feeling throughout the matchup. For
sure. So, I never really was too worried throughout the weekend, even with Darren going ahead with the Thursday night game. Honestly, CMC and Zeke together, I think, are locked top 3 matchup proof for any team. I think that I'm definitely going to have to ride them to the finals if I want to get there. Cam, disappointing game. He's had a couple disappointing games in a row. Hopefully he can pick that back up. But I think the duo between Zeke and McCaffrey just really carry me. Also, a couple key pickups that I did make. The Giants defense that I switched up for Baltimore.
Yeah, they really
that gave me 20 points. That really helped me a lot. And Edelman's consistent success. Mm-hmm. It's really going to come down to me finding that second receiver that I can trust and rely on.
That's really the one spot that you have a little bit of room to improve there. And on Darren's team, the Mikes really just fell apart in the playoffs, as we expected. 3 years in a row now. It's really it's becoming a real problem for the manager there.
I will say I was a little surprised though. He did have some letdowns that were dominating the whole season. Kamara, normally 15 plus points the entire season, single digits. Didn't come through for Darren, but it was a good matchup, Darren. You're just not better than me. Sorry, man.
Wow, yeah. All right, and we'll move over to the Dansky now, where I specialize, and I know you're with the championships and everything, but Dansky is really where I excel. And we had a few first-round matchups there that really got out of hand, don't we?
Yeah, we did. We're going to start here with Dom and Connor, and it is safe to say that although there are players ranked lower in the league standings than Dom is the worst player in this league by far. Only person challenging him is Kelly. And
I really don't think it's a question.
Yeah, it's really not a question. Look at the stats here. Pasca's ex-daddy got 40 total points and not a single player exceeding double digits.
Yeah, and not to mention 5 players scoring 5 or less points. We may not be giving Dom enough credit here, as he may be organizing the worst fantasy team of all time, and that's quite the accomplishment.
And I will touch on that just to say before I bring up my next point is that Dom might be the most confident player we've ever had who has performed the worst of any people. there's the gap between his confidence and skill is just, it's really
for sure.
enlightening. But also, let's not forget that GM's Connor's excellent week, 126 points. You expect this from Connor.
You do, yeah.
Former champion, unlucky not to make the playoffs. But, I mean, Brady with 32, Juju with 25, and T.Y. for 20. He had a great week.
Wait, so you're telling me that essentially Connor could have beaten Dom with just 2 players this week?
Yep. Essentially, Dom had less points than Connor's 2 best players. So honestly, it's just embarrassing for Dom. Great week to Connor. Kudos to you. Great player. Sorry not to see you in the playoffs, man.
Yeah, well, we'll see you next week then, Dom, I guess. And
yes,
let's kind of go ahead and break down that matchup between ex-champion Kurt and general manager Matt on the Feelers here. And, of course, apart from wide receiver Amari Cooper, who exploded for 40 points, it really was a nice, cozy matchup for the Huge Times as they cruised to victory on the backs of Mixon and Eckler, their running backs, who combined for 35 points. While the Feelers, 3 players failed to score 1 point.
Yep.
That's pretty insane from a fantasy matchup. That's Dom level right there.
That is Dom level. Did Dom get to Matt somehow, potentially? We definitely some investigation there, but that's some great analysis, Michael. Let's move on to next week's matchups and break down some of the semifinals.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Let's definitely do that. First off, we have the Mr. Nice Guys versus the Ravioli. So this one definitely really tense matchup for you. Number 1 seed, Mr. Nice Guy, led by general manager Grafton. Kind of give us, all right, what's the spread in this game? What's some key players you need to watch out for?
For sure. Grafton's up 10 on the spread right now. Obviously, he has some heavy hitters. Julio, Gurley, and Lindsey looking to bounce back from poor performances, and obviously Kutz and Goff as well after they got trampled by the Chicago defense.
Yes, definitely.
They'll be looking to bounce back. As far as I go, obviously going to be heavily relying on Zeke and McCaffrey. Been doing it the whole year. Hopefully Cam can improve, potential shootout against the Saints.
Definitely.
And White and Edelman against the Steelers, where the Patriots-Steelers sort of matchup always seems to be interesting.
Exactly.
So you never really know how that's going to turn out.
Yeah, that really could end up being the difference maker here of that Patriots-Steelers matchup as you have White and Edelman. Grafton will be, leaning on Samuels this week. So that could be the difference maker. It could come down there. Exactly.
Yeah, I will say personally, just my personal thoughts on this matchup, there hasn't been a matchup this season where I have been legitimately worried for my team, and I will say I am worried. I'm worried. Grafton's team seems there's no holes in there. I mean, I don't see a potential downgrade from any of his positions, even with the injuries that he's faced with James Conner. I'm worried, but I think McCaffrey and Zeke are gonna.
Yeah, I definitely think if they can hold their weight and excel, you do definitely have a shot. If White or Edelman can get that touchdown over Samuels.
For sure. And last thing I'll say on this topic is that I would just like to point out that whoever wins this game will be the champion. Grafton and I are the 2 best teams in the league, and it's just not a question.
And there you go. That's a bold statement. You heard it here first. All right, let's move on to then, I guess, irrelevant matchup, the other side of the bracket. We have Hoochie Mamas versus the Dark Horse Bella. Check yourselves here.
For sure.
Let's break this one down. We have Hoochie Mamas with a slight 7-point favorite spread here, and they'll be relying, of course, on Barkley, obviously, and Mahomes and Ertz are set for huge performances and easy matchups here.
Definitely. Obviously, they also still have they have Nick Chubb, who's turned out to be a great pickup. No one really saw that one coming, so great work by GM August there. And then if you look at Belichick yourself, some key players. He relies heavily on his receivers. Adams and Antonio Brown, I mean, they have been consistent this whole season. In a bad season for Green Bay, Devontae Adams has consistently produced.
For sure.
Michelle and Miller, I'm not so sure on Miller how I feel about him, but I think Michelle has been a great pickup. Definitely going to get a lot of usage against the Steelers.
Yeah, and now, do you think Austin Hooper, he is a crapshoot?
Yeah.
But do you think he gets a touchdown here against Arizona?
It's tough. I think the Falcons have been up and down the entire season. Matt Ryan's success has been there. I think Hooper snags a touchdown against the Cardinals only just because I think the Cardinals are just bad. The Cardinals are not good. I think it's a good matchup for the Falcons. And honestly, they have Patrick Peterson, who's a lockdown corner, and
Mhm.
obviously Matthew. But I think a lot of the attention is going to be going to Julio, so I
There
think
you
he'll
go.
open up opportunities for Hooper.
sure,
so
for sure.
I think he's got a chance there.
And another matchup to look out for here, you have new acquirement Dixon for the Mamas
True.
and Henry for the Belichick yourselves.
Yeah.
Can Henry repeat his amazing performance from last week?
It's tough to say whether. Obviously, first of all, it's easy to say that Henry's not going to put up 48 points again.
Okay.
I feel like there's no way you can say that. Is he a 1 week wonder? I tend to say that he is. I don't think Henry's gonna. I think he could get into some of the 12 to maybe 14 point range, but nothing crazy like he did. I think Belichick, yourself, and GM David are gonna have to rely on their quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. Whereas they fell off last week, but because of the performance of Henry, he got the win.
Through, yes.
He's got to have consistent performance throughout the board in order to get past August.
All
for
right,
sure.
thank you for that great analysis, Ian. All right, let's get down. Before we get into the Dansky bracket, we're going to give you a nice little visual of how the championship bracket is looking. All right, you see that there. So one matchup to go, semifinals. We'll see who gets on to that great final matchup, and we'll have it for you next week. All right, now moving on to the Dansky. First up in that matchup, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers versus my Crunching Munchies. So kind of give us a laydown of the land here, if you will.
For sure. As far as GM Matt goes, he's relying heavily on Amari Cooper. Obviously, a lot of people question whether he's worth a first-round pick. Cowboys took a lot of heat for it, but I think it's clear now that Cooper was worth everything that they paid for him.
For sure.
And it's worth everything in fantasy as well. He has been a fantasy beast since he's been in Dallas.
Definitely.
And also, Calvin Ridley, hot at the beginning of the season, kind of slowed down a little bit. Julio's been taking the touchdowns from him.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's always a question mark with Jordan Howard. Tariq Cohen seems to be the guy there, seems to be the guy getting the points. You never really know whether Jordan Howard's going to produce or not.
Yeah, there's a big question marks there on the Steelers side. And the Munchies, we've really, developed up as the season has gone along. We're going to need big games from Fournette and Galladay here for them to bounce back from their slow weeks. And let me tell you, Ebron is a lethal weapon in this game. It seems like touchdowns every week, and that'll definitely be our key to victory. While Curtis Samuel could be a dart throw in what like you said, could be a shootout. Definitely. All right. So 15-point spread there for the Munchies. Hopefully we'll be able to cover that and get out of the dance.
Speaking personally on Ebron, I had Ebron, and then I had Doyle, and then I picked up Ebron after Doyle got hurt. When Doyle came back, I thought he would dominate the reps. Then he got hurt again, and I had already dropped Ebron. Definitely a player that I'd like to have now as I'm struggling with picking tight ends.
Yeah, the tight end is just...
Ebron has been a great weapon to pick up. Obviously, great move by GM Michael.
He has been a saving grace for the second half of the season.
For sure.
All right, now in our final matchup of the week, the Dumpster Bowl, we have Pasca's ex-daddy versus Grafton's a bum. And this 92-92 even lock from the projections. Who's going to be the key playmakers and difference makers in this game?
It's hard to say, Michael. It's really hard to say.
Anything about Dom's team is hard to say.
Yes, anything about Dom's team and just anything about Kelly in general. It's tough. It's tough. Obviously, Thielen hopefully can bounce back from a disappointing game. Trubinsky against the Rams, he had a decent game, but not some of the numbers that he was putting up earlier in the season. And then you look to Kelly. Odell is really what's carrying his squad. Odell is really his guy, and he was out last week. So it will be interesting to see whether Odell comes back. One bright spot I will say in this matchup, Aaron Jones. I really like Aaron Jones. I think he's a great player. I think he's consistently getting points for Green Bay, and I think that will help lead Kelly to hopefully sending Dom. He
has a very high floor, and if the Packers use him correctly, his ceiling, I think, is up there with the Nick Chubbs and Melvin Gordons of the world.
I agree for sure.
All right, and that'll do it for our matchup breakdowns here. And let's now move over to the weekly awards of this week, and we'll start off with the Murphy mix-up here. Ian, you said before the show it's pretty obvious. Who gets it this week?
It's got to be GM Brody here, and Grafton touched on this in the group message a little bit about how the way he lost was just heartbreaking. He had players on his bench that if he played them, it would have put him on the track to get to the semifinal. Obviously, sitting Kittle, that's a heartbreaker.
It is.
That's a heartbreaker.
27 points left on the bench.
One thing I will say though for Brody is that retrospect starting Kelsey. I mean, starting Travis Kelsey, top 3 tight end in the league. It's tough. It's tough to split him on your bench.
You have to argue. He did run the 2 tight end set earlier in the season.
He did.
Why not this week? Why not in the playoffs?
That is very good point. He also did sit Chicago's defense that exploded against the Rams. Definitely disappointing for Brody. Hard way to go out, but definitely deserving of the mix-up.
Yeah, that is textbook Murphy mix-up right there. You're overthinking the matchups and not playing the players that got you in your position.
Completely agree.
You hate to say it, but Brody, it's all your fault.
It is.
You're not
fault,
in
Brody.
the semifinal.
It's your own fault, Brody.
All right, and now let's move over to an extra special. Oh boy, play of the week here, and Ian. Is there an argument for any player other than Derrick Henry? I mean, 48 points, 238 rushing yards.
I don't see a player here that is more deserving of the award or the decision by GM David, especially because of how his other players faltered.
Exactly.
Playing Henry was definitely deserving of the Old Boy Play of the Week. Yep. 48 points, I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, 4 rushing touchdowns. It was definitely the key to his victory there. Yeah. And it wasn't like he was a lock to play either.
Definitely wasn't.
David had other options, but he stuck with his gut there and made the right play.
For sure. I definitely think GM Brody could take some notes from GM David here. It's all about playing the right players.
Exactly.
Because GM David plays someone else at his flex.
It's over. Yeah,
he's out. He's out, and Brody's on to semifinals. So smart play from GM David there, and definitely deserving of the Old Boy Play.
Yeah, and now we'll look to another manager who could take some notes from David as well. Yep. The playoff choke, and this one. It's been 3 years coming now.
Yep.
Ian, who wins this award?
Well, the winner of this award would be the loser of my matchup this previous week, and it's Darren Murphy. Darren, you've been in the playoffs first round 3 times in a row and lost every time. Do you need, we can maybe set up a strategy session for you for next year? I mean, we can try to talk about how the playoffs work and what you need to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure some successful players such as myself would love to help you out. I wish you best of luck in your church league, though. I know that's very competitive for you. I know you hold that near and dear to your heart, but it's got to be Darren. It's got to be Darren. Losing 3 times in a row in the playoffs, that's how you know.
Yeah, and Darren, if you do want to avoid that playoff heartbreak there, you could take a page out of my playbook, not even qualify.
That's another way to go.
No worries, I'm not worried about losing the playoffs.
Exactly.
So,
You can't choke if you're not in the position to choke.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
The first place.
You can't choke if you don't eat. So
yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
All right, and now, Ian, your first time on the show here. Yeah. I'm gonna give you the honor. Do you want to lay down DTDB Moment of the Week Playoff Edition?
Yes.
How'd it go by?
I'd love to expand on what I think this award was for this week. Obviously, we spoke about it early in the show. Dom, terrible. Yeah. Absolutely terrible. Literally the definition of mediocrity.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So you'd have to think Dom bottom, correct? But Darren, playoff choke, 3 times losing in the playoffs in a row. No playoff success, despite his consistent regular season success. Mm-hmm. True letdown. So I'd have to say Dom and Darren are both bottom, and I'd have to put David on top because David with the play of Henry, and his strategic win over Brody going into the semifinals when he barely slipped in the playoffs in the first place. You gotta give David top, Dom, and Darren bottom just because of the performances this week.
There you go. Yeah, the playoffs might not have been the only thing Darren was choking on this weekend.
Yes, that's we won't go too further into that, but you get the point for sure.
All right, so now we'll move on to our champion spotlight here, and what better than to have our guest, our co-host on the show, lay down. You're the last one in the playoffs of the champions. Mm-hmm. How do you use your experience here, and how might that give you an edge over our other playoff contenders?
For sure. I think going into playoffs, it's the number one thing for me is making decisive decisions when it comes to who you're playing, who you want. I like to stick to a core group of people and then maybe switch out a couple players. Like last week, I stuck to my normal lineup, but then Baltimore's playing Kansas City, not a good matchup. And then the Giants had a great matchup against the Redskins, who were using their fourth string quarterback. So it's all about making tweaks when necessary, but also sticking to the players that have got you to where you are. I think a couple problems that some people face is that they overanalyze too much and they try to switch out players who end up causing them to lose.
Okay.
That's what normally I stick to. And honestly, it's getting a core group of guys that you trust. That's the biggest thing for me. McCaffrey, Zeke, and Cam, besides this past week, have been my guys. They've been consistently producing 15 to 20 points almost every week. They're guys that I know I'm going to get points from. And I think you got to build, but that starts at the beginning of the season, building that core group of guys that can lead you. And I think McCaffrey and Zeke are gonna take me there again. Hopefully.
Awesome. All right, definitely. I think that there's something in there that we all can learn from.
For sure.
From the champion there. All right. And now we're gonna move on to a fun little segment. We have the media conference here. Hopefully, we're gonna have some live interviews in on the show, and we'll see. Who we're gonna have today.
Yeah,
I know
I'd love to get some
you
insight.
have a special interview here.
I definitely have someone I'd like to interview for sure.
Awesome,
so we'll see if we can get him on the phone.
Definitely. You can go ahead and
for sure. Let me see if I can get my guy on the phone. The guy you're calling, notoriously known for that answer.
We should have known before.
Yeah, we should have known beforehand. Oh, and here we go. We have Brody on the line. Brody, love to have you.
What's up?
How are you doing after this past week, Brody? We've been talking about how some bad decisions in your lineup caused you to take a fall this week. Do you want to expand on that?
Oh, no. I'm kind of depressed out of the playoffs. I decided to pick up the Pittsburgh defense, which that just sucked.
Yeah.
Yep.
It really did.
Yep.
And how was that $35 spent there? Good investment?
I'm glad I spent it. We can't carry it over. Got to splurge a little bit. So
fair enough.
Yeah, Black Friday deals.
Fair enough. Brody, one thing that I did talk about during the show was how, although you made some bad decisions, the decisions that you made, I did understand. I did get where you were coming from, playing Kelsey over Kittle. Kelsey top 3 tight end, and obviously Pittsburgh defense against Oakland.
Yep.
Against Oakland, those are definitely right to say. I think, if anything, I don't want to throw around the word unlucky, but when it comes down to it, I think that it's gotta hurt. It's gotta hurt to make those decisions, knowing that you could have been in the semifinals.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're right.
And Brody, is there anything maybe from this season, you had a very successful season, that you might want to take over to next season?
You mean a strategy? What are you talking about?
Yeah. I guess you're not really one for strategy. Do you want me to draft your team again next year?
You know what? That would be a good idea, and I'll pick out the best big people on the waiver wire.
All right, there we go. We'll look forward to it. Thank you so much for joining.
Brady. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, y'all.
All right. We'll look forward to seeing you later.
Interesting insight from Brody.
Awesome.
There.
Yeah, and if you want to maybe give Grafton a call, we'll see if he answers.
Could give Grafton a call. Love to talk to my opponent this week.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm sure he'll have some fun to say.
Yeah, see what he has to say about the matchup. If I'm in Grafton's shoes, it's smooth sailing for me. I'm not worried about anything. So definitely interesting to get his take. Grafton.
What's up?
Love to hear from you. You're on the show.
You're live on the show.
Oh, I'm on the show.
All right, Grafton. Give us you had this bye week. Give us some, insight to what you and the team were doing, over the bye week to get ready.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. The team didn't do much to get ready. I don't know if anybody was following my team on the bye week. I think the only person that did worse than me was Dom, because Dom's team is probably the worst Kansas team we've ever had.
Oh yeah,
for sure. No, we definitely pointed that out for sure.
But yeah, my team took a well-deserved break. I think nobody really did much. Jared Goff got negative points. But
hey, that'll do it. It's a good thing you had the bye week. Way to plan that out in the foresight there. You had.
Yeah, really needed that one.
Exactly, yeah. You have Ian and the Raviolis now, coming up hot. They had a great win previously against Darren and the Mikes. Is there anything you're looking out for or that you're worried about from your competition this week?
Look, man, here's the thing. This is a matchup of the two best teams in the league.
Thank you, Grafton. I said that earlier in the show.
With 4 of the top 5 rushing leaders in the NFL.
Definitely true, yeah.
Obviously, the only other one is Saquon Barkley on the Hoochies.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the winner of this should be able to go all the way. But I'm really nervous because there's a curse out there. The best fantasy team never wins, it seems like, in previous years.
Definitely so.
Darren's team was dominant last year when he
that's some good insight right there.
Humorously lost in the first round.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to break the curse. It's kind of been my theme all season. Breaking the curse with, being the shitty manager that I used to be.
For sure.
Breaking the curse with Brody winning games against teams that you should never win against. I started that trend.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think if I break this curse as well, then we're just hitting the trifecta.
I will say, Grafton, as your future opponent this week, I said earlier in the show that normally I am very confident in my team, never really worried about a matchup. I am terrified to play your team in the semifinals. I will not lie. There is not a single hole in your lineup. And I am kicking myself that I didn't play you last week because I would have won last week.
You would have won last week, that's for sure.
And it makes me worried that Goff and Gurley had really bad games, and now they're going to come back and they're going to tear it up. But either way, best of luck to you. We appreciate the insight for sure. Definitely some interesting points. Most interesting to me is that we're the best 2 teams in the league, and that probably the winner of our matchup will win it all. But best of luck to you this week, and may the best man win.
All right. Thanks for coming in, Grafton.
Best of luck to Ian. If I do lose, please, God, let the Panthers win.
Oh, yes, please.
Amen. All right, we'll catch you later, Grafton.
Right. See you.
All right, awesome. And that will about do it for this week's weekly wrap-up here. And that's all we have for, the episode. Good luck to everyone who has matchups this week. Any closing thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. First off, I just want to talk about GM Connor and about how his claim to fame is that he's a champion, and I respect that as another champion. Mm-hmm. But this breaks a streak for Connor in finishing 3rd or better in the league.
Definitely
3rd or better in the league every season. So are the Ravaging Rainbows on the decline? Is Connor lost his step?
Okay.
Definitely something to look at. And honestly, this year's been amazing. I think it's been great. Also, I want to take some time to point out that there's 4 teams left, and if you look all the way back to the draft and you look at the draft grades by Yahoo mean nothing.
Oh yeah,
mean absolutely nothing, because the top teams in the league that I believe are me and Grafton, and I believe I got a C and Grafton got maybe a C+ or a C-, one of the two. And I just like to say, Yahoo, you know nothing. Obviously, we're the real experts here. And but yeah, it's been a great season, and I hope to move forward.
Yeah, well, I also did get a C- there, and I think they hit it spot on.
Well,
so maybe they're hit or miss.
Hit or miss. There you go.
That'll do it here at MFFL Studios. We'll see you next week on another episode of the Weekly Wrap-Up, where we analyze the semifinal matchups and break down the Dansky Bowl and, of course, the Millbrook Fantasy Championship. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. See you later.